Good afternoon, everybody. It's Wednesday, May 24th, 1600 hours is the Board of Commissioners Budget Workshop meeting. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Rostick,
Present.
Commissioner Taglerini, Commissioner Vice Mayor Kerr,
Here.
Commissioner McGinn,
Present.
Commissioner Brooks.
Here.
Hey, first up is public comment for anything that's not on the agenda. Do we have anyone that would like to come forward and speak to the commission? Okay. Next item is discussion items, the FY24 budget. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commission. This is our second workshop on our fiscal 2024 budget. We're going to begin with an item that we moved from last month's workshop to this month, and that's it's left a piece of paper at your space. And this pertains to the city looking to potentially move our retirement plan for employees from our current plan, which is a 401(a) type plan, to the Florida Retirement System, or FRS. We had finance kind of develop what that would look like, what any associated costs, the process, and how that would going forward. So as you can see, there is a process that we would have to go to, and it does incur a cost, and the cost can be paid all at once, or it can be spread out over a little bit of time. But essentially, if we were to, in actuality, buy back years, up to 8 years for employees, and for all of our full-time employees, that cost would be a little over $221,000, which again, everything that has been contributed by the employer to the ICMA, our current plan. How we could make those payments, and that's described there in the second kind of bullet heading, that we could make that either all at once or with a down payment and then spread out over annual installments that would be amortized over a period by the formula that's listed there. And I believe based on the formula, it gives us, I don't know, Andrew, if you looked at, but I think it gives us up to 5 years to pay. But we would obviously determine what that actually would be back to you. So the requirements to join. Really make this little. Just makes it a little easier to see. From the date of that we would rejoin in prior years, and apparently at least for the last 8 years, the city moved away from the FRS for all employees hired after a certain date, after that date. And with the exception of our fire IAFF, or International Association of Firefighters Union employees, they are currently in the FRS, as well as 2 current full-time employees who are still in the FRS due to their hiring several decades ago. But from the date that we would begin, we would then begin the contributions. It's important to note, and I've mentioned this obviously at our staff meetings and to department heads to reiterate, currently the city, the employer, provides a 100% contribution to each employee's retirement plan. Should we make the decision to switch to the Florida Retirement System, or FRS, I'm sorry, and let me backtrack a little bit. The city contributes 100% to each employee's plan. Employees currently do not contribute any amount to their retirement. Should we switch to the Florida Retirement System, again, the employer would contribute 100%, or nearly 100%. Employees would then be required to contribute 3% of their annual salary. And that contribution would be an automatic through payroll every pay period. So, and then currently the contribution based on what the Florida Retirement System calculates every year, The current employer contribution is 11.91%. But again, that can change every July 1. Whether it will change, we don't know. I don't think we have that information as of yet. We currently have 44 full-time employees that are eligible to, in essence, buy back what has already been contributed through the current ICMA retirement system. We also have 10 part-time employees that are eligible to join FRS. And are all employees required to join? Yes, but only the current employees, or I'm sorry, are any employees allowed to join FRS or stay with ICMA? Current employees could stay, but any new employees would be required to enroll in the FRS. Anybody willing to stay would have to sign documents stating that they would, which plan they would stay with the ICMA. In vesting, or how the vesting, meaning you're in essence able to receive a benefit, a full benefit based on the number of years that you work. The vesting is a little bit different in the FRS than the current plan. As is listed right now, our vesting for the ICMA is your 100% full vesting after 5 years. With the FRS, it's 8 years of service, so you do have to work a few more years. But again, depending on when you started and when you're retirement eligible, depends on the benefit that you would eventually, the retirement benefit that you would receive. And if we are just other items to consider whether we switch over to FRS or not. Right now, you can see the increases that the city provides. Right now, the city's regular employees about 9%. If we were not to switch to FRS, those that are again in the FRS, mainly our fire and our two sanitation employees, are at the 11.9%, and you can see the firefighter contribution nearly 27%. It's much higher, but it's been trending much higher over the past few years. This has come about from several employees inquiring if we could switch. The FRS is in essence, a pension type plan. What is offered to employees is, as I stated, almost a 401k type plan managed by ICMA, or now called Mission Square. And that is subject to market conditions, a little bit more volatile than an actual sort of a traditional or a historical pension, although governments have been moving away from your traditional historical pensions. But in most instances, for whether it's a city, a county, or a state, with the exception of Florida up until a few years ago, most of them did require an employee contribution. And the state of Florida did change that probably about a decade ago. I don't remember when they changed it. I know I was working up here in Pinellas County, and it was a big discussion, and particularly among first responders, that they would now be, those that were in the state retirement system would now be required to contribute, whereas previously they were not. And again, we don't know whether the state will increase that amount. It is not going to increase in the state's fiscal 24 budget. So employees will still, members of the FRS will still be contributing to 3%. So to reiterate, you have what our cost would be to buy back. We could, again, buy back over time. If we were to decide to go with this plan, again, those changes could go into effect beginning October 1st. Andrew, anything else to? Happy to answer any questions.
City manager, what are the advantages of keeping the employees where they are versus moving over to the new system? I'm assuming as it's a 97.3% split, that now the city is only going to have to pay 97% and the employee is going to pick up 3%.
That's correct. That's part of it. Yes.
Okay. And what do the employees want? Is this what they want?
I've heard from several employees that this is something that they would like to do.
Okay.
And again, from my perspective, being in a pension has a better benefit. You're not subject to market condition as much. I mean, you are because pensions are invested. However, I think when you have a 401 type plan, you tend to kind of look at it, especially as you're getting closer to your retirement. And it is based on what you select, it can fluctuate significantly because it's just showing your amount. It's not showing it's not a pension, it's not a pooled amount of money, whether it's $1 million or 100 million. So it's just yours. And so if there's a 2% increase or a 3% decrease or a 6% increase, that's much more noticeable than, every year I receive a statement from a city I worked in and the increases and decreases are negligible because the pension has hundreds of millions of dollars in it. So I think that's a little bit is the perception, but I think employees feel from what has been communicated to me, better to switch to the state retirement system.
Okay, if we were to go with this, what would be the interest rate to finance it over a couple of years? Is it the
I think it's-
6.5?
Yeah, that's what it stated.
Okay, that's like 14 grand then.
Right.
Or over that. Okay.
But again, we could make it as just in a fiscal 24, we just add that to the budget and it's taken care of.
Commissioners?
So if you have employees who are interested in it, I'd be interested to understand the number of employees. I mean, I think I would prefer that, but it would be interesting. I mean, of all of the employees that contribute, who would like to change to this and who wouldn't? And they would have the choice, wouldn't they? If they said, I don't want to.
Yes, but I think
Yeah.
it's been a majority of them
That want it.
But we could certainly, we'll follow up and make that determination.
Well, no, I mean, if it's the majority, then yeah.
I mean, guess I will state the only, is the 3% contribution. That's in essence, but you would likely gain that over time. You're going to gain that over time. Unless there's a significant issue with the Florida retirement system, which I don't see that happening. It's hundreds of millions of, if not billions of dollars. I haven't looked at their most recent statement, but it's got to be into the billions. I think the state allocated $7 billion this year, somewhere in that, to continue to fund it. So it will be there for the next X number of decades. And so you are guaranteed, you would be guaranteed a higher rate than the current plan because of just market conditions. Now, again, over time, the markets are what they are, but you're not going to see you may see a much bigger loss. There's a much bigger risk than in a pension type system. All things kind of considered. Pensions have lost considerable amount of money, but it's been because of very poor decisions that have been made by the fiduciaries of the pension. I just don't see that happening with the Florida retirement system.
I think this sounds like a good plan. The only thing that I would be afraid of is a deja vu. If we don't have everybody switch over at this time, then this is going to be a repeat couple years down the road, next year, whenever, that the rest of them may want to change over. Is there a way that we can make sure that they all change over?
That's something to consider. And then certainly anybody who's hired after a certain date
Has to.
they wouldn't have an option. So eventually over time, you would have everybody.
Just through attrition.
Yes.
Okay.
Is it my understanding that the city used to be with the FRS and then they switched to the IMCA?
Yes. And
Why did they do that?
if
Do you
we
know? And how
had-
long ago was that?
It's been at least 8 years. I don't know if in 2014. So I think one of you were here, two. Okay, so a very long time.
Started in 97, just.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it said in 90, it was either 96 or 97. It has been, I said at least the 8 years that are listed here in the document, but much longer than that. And why the city switched to it, And I think maybe they were, I don't know, trying to save money way back then. It's hard to say. Typically, you make changes to lower your costs, but over time, not a 1 year normally.
So where we're hiring people and sometimes we have a difficult time attracting people to come into our city and work, does this change make us a little bit more attractive
Well,
or make us as competitive as other
well,
cities?
we would be, I think, more similar to other cities in offering this benefit. In my nearly 30 years, whether a 25-year-old or even a 30-year-old is that informed, knowledgeable about their retirement, some are, I believe most are not. I'll tell you, I definitely was not when I was hired full-time at 24. That's one of the last things you're kind of thinking of, oh, it comes with a pension. So in 50 years, I'll get paid a certain amount of money every month instead of work. But can it? Yes, it can. I think because it's a pension, when you mentioned the word pension, is it a defined benefit, a defined contribution? You get into much more of the details, the specifics. It could make a difference. I don't think it's the only, but yes, it could.
So then not only, if we agree to this, we're going to have this expense for the buyback. What concerns me even more is that we don't have that dependent healthcare coverage that I think is paramount to keep our good employees. And so there's going to be another cost there that's going to be in the budget that we're going to talk about eventually also, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That one's not forecasted to be nearly as much as this 200 plus. But yes, I mean, that's another, and again, a benefit that can help with the hiring.
This 221,000, this is basically a one-time to get back into the program. Is that correct?
Yes.
What about the annual cost? Is there more of an annual cost to the FRS versus the IMCA, or is it or ICMA?
Again, we don't really know well into the future, but because, I mean, based on what we know now, it's about the same. However, there is an employee contribution that can eventually potentially lower the employer contribution.
But it's on the same, and it's in the same ballpark.
Yes.
So for an employee that has a pension through the FRS, that they're basically guaranteed a certain income based on their income level. I'm going to spitball here from the previous 3 years, and that's what it's going to be with cost of living adjustments versus the 401k type plan, the ICMA. It really is based on how much you've saved in your bucket.
Yes. Yeah. What plan you chose and how it performed.
And that is basically you get your 401k at retirement and you can spend it as you see fit.
Correct.
Whether that's over time or however you see fit.
That is correct.
Where the FRS is a monthly check that you get or a weekly check or whatever.
I think it's monthly,
regular.
but yeah, you would, and I don't believe the FRS has upon retirement, a full buyback. I think they had discussed that years ago to lessen the cost to the pension, and other cities discussed it. So in other words, when you
Buyout option.
yeah, so here's what you can buy one time, or 2 times, and as opposed to, you get it all up front essentially, as opposed to over your expected, life, whether that be 20, 30 or 40 years, because it could save the plan over time.
Sure.
But I don't think FRS offers that.
No, I mean, the way I'm looking at it, if I was a long-term employee looking for retirement, the FRS is definitely more beneficial. I can see that wouldn't be a hard sell across the board.
No.
And the 221,000 and change, I can see that as an investment back into the You might have to break it up. I don't know. We'd have to look at the budget and talk about it and figure that piece out, but I definitely think it's a great benefit for the employees. And as the mayor pointed out, we also have to look at the other costs that, you know, as far as healthcare and for family and whatnot. So I don't know that, you know, this may impact votes on the other side. So just put that out there.
Yes.
Just some quick calculations. It's a little over $5,000 per person to buy back, like $5,035. And we just have to remember that our employees are our most valuable asset. Other things can be cut from the budget, but we have to protect our employees. So as the mayor, I'm for this. What does everybody else say?
I am for it also. I think that if the majority of the current employees want this, it definitely is a long-term better plan. And I would think that when we're hiring people, we're not hiring people to stay 5 years. We want people to stay and make Madeira Beach their home, make this their job where they want to come every day. So it's just an added benefit. And I think that when we get to the point of figuring out how to pay for this and pay for healthcare, we'll figure that out.
I agree also. I believe that especially with the majority of employees that have already said that they're willing to change, I definitely agree it's a great option.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we'll incorporate into the operating budgets that we will likely bring back to you next month, at next month's workshop. Moving forward, our capital budget for fiscal 2024. That's up to you.
Oh, absolutely. Please come up and talk to us. I forgot you were there, sir. I'm sorry.
Jerry Cantrell, 13322 First Street East. I'm a member of FRS. So something you guys aren't mentioning, which may not be aware of, is there's something called deferred retirement option plan. And that's when you retire, you're allowed to actually retire and continue working 5 years. And there's a one-time extension that go beyond that. Where the state, you continue to make your salary, the state accrues your payments over those 5 years. I know as educators, we leave making $300,000. It's a one-time lump sum when you leave at the end of 5 years. So there's other benefits there. So it's besides the fact that you're covered, it allows people to actually make extra money that they wouldn't be able to make. So it's just let you know that there are benefits to it.
Thank you. Did you know about that?
Yes, it's gone through some changes over the years, but it's, you know, I'd have to go back. I mean, we'd have to go back and research exactly the requirements because it doesn't apply to every position either. So it's mainly been for first responders, teachers, rather than kind of your city and county employee, administrative employees. So, but it is available, and obviously whatever FRS would offer, our employees would be eligible for it as well. I know it's been more, as I said, more common. I'm more familiar with police and fire, and it just allows them, as Mr. Cantrell said, to just accrue additional benefits. And some of those, the state has other funding sources for that. I mean, more police and fire have specific sections in Florida statutes that allows for retirement benefit. So there's other options available, and that's one of them. So our capital budget, I know in the document that you have, we included the information from the prior meeting. If you go about halfway down the packet, we begin with the capital items. And essentially what we've done is listed every individual capital item by department. Just wanted to go through the capital first, and then we can go back to.
What page are you on?
Let me get. It's at the bottom.
Yeah, at the bottom. It's, I think, page 50.
50.
52. Thank you.
52.
52 is a list of the, begin with by department or by fund, but I think we essentially each department is listed. The first one that, again, we're on page 52. It begins with City Madera Beach FY 2024 Capital Improvement Plan. Item 4A. And again, it's page 54. Is this 50? Well, it says 52 of 56 at the bottom of the page.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it begins with Archibald. We have an Archibald Park Fund where we record revenues and expenditures for that park facility, which includes the sand, the agreement with the two operators for the beach chair umbrella rentals and the snack shack. And then, of course, the parking component. So all of those are incorporated into the Archibald Park Fund. For next year, we're proposing a new, again, just going kind of item by item, a new replacement of a truck. And I think this is a replacing, I forget which vehicle, a new one. Excuse me, not a replacement, but just a new F-250 utility truck that again would be utilized mainly at Archibald, but by Public Works for their operations out at Archibald. We're funding out of Archibald also repairs and rebuild to the Patriot Park over off on 150th, rebuilding the piers, the columns to the fishing pier, the whole fishing pier. There is also, I'm sorry, before we continue, toward the, oh no, we don't have, okay. We have descriptions also that for each individual, though they're all kind of self descriptive what we're doing, but also just general park improvements for 150,000, which just in general making Megan specifically, I didn't.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
That is really specifically the pocket parks that are going to be under construction, probably more towards the end of this fiscal year, and any remaining will go towards park improvements.
Thank you. And the two biggest projects where some of the work has already started in this year, but next year we really go into the actual construction costs, or both the bathrooms at Archibald and then the repairs or renourishment of the beach groins. So we have a lot of the preliminary work has been completed and will be completed this year. Some of the construction may begin in the current year, but the majority will take place next year. That's why you see the two large expenditures of $1 million and 3.5 million. For the beach groins, though, we do have some, or approximately
1.75.
1.75 million that is funded by the state. But we're showing for purposes of our budget, the total costs of the project.
Correct. And we will get reimbursement.
Any questions on Archibald Fund Capital?
I have a question. On our last meeting regarding the pocket parks, there was some question on whether we could actually do that work.
We can. We just have to ensure that it stays pretty much as it is, that it's available to the public, that we do not impede or remove anything that is currently used available. So I think a good example is the 133rd Avenue Park that was completed several years ago. If you compare that today to the other ones, that just simply has paved parking and then a walkway, and then some enhanced, landscaping features. It didn't change the usage of it nor the character. there are still available parking spaces. There's areas that it's still available to the public to be used completely with walkways that were, well, before I think it was just all grass. And now there's grass with a paved walkway.
Okay, well, what about the restrictions on parking? Actually just putting parking at the street, I'll say within 20 feet of the curb versus having parking all the way through or having right of way through. Where I know the one resident is currently using it as an entry. What are the restrictions on that? Was there any more discussion on that?
Well, we have to, I mean, we will provide an entry and exit for that resident. But that'll improve the park once we do that, because that actually opens up the footprint of the park for the public. And it's not being relegated. I mean, right now, anybody can use it, but we would not change what is currently there other than provide the property owner their own entrance and exit.
Okay, I don't recall the email exactly, but it was after the last meeting. We have to be careful on
Correct.
what we can do and what we can't do.
Right, but it was to not impede any public use of the part of the areas.
Okay. And then,
I think that came from Tom, if there was anything you wanted to add.
No, when I issued the email, I just wanted to make sure that when you look at the plat for this particular subdivision or subdivisions, it didn't specifically call out these street ends as parks. It called them out as streets, and they were dedicated as streets. And so, in sending the email, it was basically, we just need to make sure that we keep that in the back of our mind with everything that we're doing so that there is access both to the water and to the properties on each side of it. And I think that can be accomplished. We just need to be careful not to, for example, cut it off and put bollards across it so there would be no access whatsoever.
but basically, isn't that what we've done at the one improved park that we referenced? No, years ago.
The 130, no, you can still walk to the
You can still
water.
walk, but you can't drive. There's bollards. That's my point.
Well,
So we just need to make sure that we don't do that for the next set of parks. That, and as for taking those out, I mean, I wouldn't suggest that we make any changes there. If there is some public outcry to remove them, then maybe that'd be a possible avenue to fix that. But we just make sure that whatever the improvements are, that we always keep in the back of our mind, it is a street. It'll always be a street. So.
But isn't this today about the money that we're going to allocate? Because they're going to come back to us at a
Yes.
later date with a
Yes.
plan. And then we're just saying, let's give this money in
Make
the
it
budget
available.
to go towards that. And then we can hash out what we do when
yeah,
that
and
time
that, and that
comes.
might, I don't mean
Yeah.
to interrupt. And that might be to proceed with it or not
Or
to
not.
proceed with it. We're just simply asking, as Commissioner Brooks stated, for the availability of the funding to proceed, potentially proceed.
Okay. I just like a comment based on how many trucks do we have and what's the requirement for a new truck?
I have two for grounds for the citywide. I have two staff and only one vehicle. So this new truck is for that other person to have their own vehicle, so they're not constantly together and we can do more things, get more accomplished.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our building fund total of 286,000, some power poles that we will be adding to eventually store our boat next to our fire boat right out here. We don't actually have a name for this canal. No, or this. Oh, they're not part of the dock, I'm sorry. So for the actual boat itself, the $6,000, as well as a new motor for the boat. also have to purchase a new Ford truck, and now that's an additional truck as well, as opposed to a replacement.
I have a question. Didn't we just buy this boat with a motor? Is something wrong with the motor that we have? Was the boat not surveyed when we bought it, or what? Can you elaborate what happened?
It's a used boat, 2008. We couldn't buy a new boat. They weren't available, but it's a used boat with multiple hours. I think Krabby can explain a little better.
Thank you.
Yeah, the boat has a little over 400 hours on it. It's in good shape. It's in running shape. But, if we can buy something that is newer, more efficient and has a warranty and everything, I think it saves us in the long run.
How many hours a year do you think you're gonna put on the boat?
Between the code compliance and public works, I honestly couldn't give you an idea on that. Can
Okay,
you help with that?
but this also could be used as a backup for the fire department, so it needs to
Sure.
be very reliable.
Any department can use it.
It's
Okay,
citywide.
okay,
Any department will be accessible right outside for any department to use.
okay. No, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robin, did these funds that are from the building department come out of the building department's fund, or is this coming out of general?
This would come out of the building fund.
Okay.
And the last item is what we're calling a satellite office, or which we're still to include whether or not whether, but whether we have another or move the building to another or have another office to work out of. But we're still very early in where that might be or the design. We just wanted to include it for next year and bring back to you where and what that might look like. But we're just estimating that would be about a $200,000 capital cost for a build out. Just because it fell under my department, under city manager, the military honor court. And we have not had a discussion about this yet, but we will later in the summer and then look to begin the following year. The military, this has been, I think, in the discussion and works for more than a year. And we've had pro bono engineering services to come up with a design, but the location is over at Patriot Park, where there currently is a little kiosk pavilion. The pavilion is going to be relocated approximately 100 feet to the west of where it currently sits. There's another circular cement area, and that's where we plan to relocate the pavilion. And then where the pavilion is and around it is create the military honor court to just erect it there, build it in that area. Just thinking of what that total cost might be is really about 250,000, likely a little, not quite that amount, but just to be on what that total cost would be. We have received so far a $25,000 contribution or donation for the military honor court from the American Legion Post 27. I should know it. 273. So they contributed $25,000 to the project already.
Do you have any conceptual plans for this? that
We
you can
just
share?
received them within the last few weeks, and so we will bring that back to you probably at the June workshop, June or July, as to what it looks like, what the idea is. We toured some of the other ones in the area to get an idea of what it would look like. And I said, we'll bring it back to you probably at the June workshop. Fire EMS. Just replace some appliances, kitchen items and laundry. I know it says laundry, but incorporate some of the appliances in the kitchen and for the guys and gals to be able to various cleaning of equipment, uniforms, etc. Replace their Polaris, which they currently use for special events and also to respond and just different uses that they have. As you can see, it's a 2014. I forgot do you know the amount of usage or hours or Trish, by any chance? We can
Yeah.
find that, but it is almost 9 years old.
It's old, and the more we use it now, we use it on the beach, so it has more wear and tear than it did when we originally got it.
Would also like to include painting the fire station. Of course, we have to coordinate that with the settling issues that we're dealing with now, but we're looking to do that next year, as well as replace portable radios and purchase a quick response vehicle. And I know the chief and I will be scheduling more discussions one-on-ones to go over that, because that's part of a new NFPA requirement that will lead to, that is, what's the right terminology? It is essentially recommending, directing additional staffing going into the future, particularly for departments out here. So we will have more of a discussion, but we wanted to include in for next year's capital this quick response vehicle that utilize citywide and or through our whole territory.
I'm all for definitely replacing the 2014 Polaris Ranger at the cost of right around 25,000. Definitely, it's been used quite a bit. What happens to, once we replace that, do we still keep that one for the fire department as well?
I don't imagine the need for the fire department, but I'm sure we could hand it down to another department that needs it.
City manager, that quick response vehicle, is that potential, or does that have the potential to be used to run the medical calls versus run that $1 million ladder truck up and down the road to save us wear and tear on that?
I'm pretty sure that it can. That's what other cities are doing. You're getting, different types of over the year, different types of, not an apparatus, but vehicles, whether it's a Tahoe, a Suburban, or whatever type of vehicle. But yes, you can equip it just to respond to medical, which does exactly as you stated. I think that's part of it, as well as having availability in other parts of the city. Granted, we're only 2 square miles, but it can make a difference if we need to be on the other side of the causeway, or if we need to be down at the village and the boardwalk. It can just save, minutes in doing that. So having the quick response, but I think that's really the key, is really more for the medical, which again is 85 to 87% of our calls are medical related.
Yeah. Question then, is there any thought process of applying for a safer grant for any upstaffing?
We've discussed that with the chief, and we will bring that back to all of you as to how we could, how that might work.
Thank you.
So not just for staffing, but also for equipment. Moving on to John's Pass Village, replace pavers again on the sidewalks, just repair and replace as they need to be. Then we tend to budget every year for that one, as well as for any boardwalk repairs that we might need. You can see the 30 and 50,000 for those items. And we will be looking to resurface, mill and resurface Village, those 3 areas: Village Boulevard, Boardwalk Place, and the surface lot.
The mill and resurface will actually be in 2025. Sorry, that was a whoopsie. So we can participate in a joint participation agreement with Pinellas County to save money.
So we will move this to 2025. Marina, we just put this at the marina, in the marina's budget, another digital sign as you enter through the causeway, but it only because it's at the entrance to the marina in the city, but a digital sign. Previous commission had that discussion of whether we could have something similar to what we have out here, but possibly just a little bit bigger that would relay all types of information, events, meetings, activities. And resurfacing the parking areas out at the marina.
What's this one item, enclose old boat ramp? What is that?
For the following year.
Uh-huh.
Okay, where we had the old boat ramp that we closed down when we built the new one, which is by the cell phone tower there. That's to just bring that seawall across there. Because the land is not being used as a ramp. We're not allowed by the grant we accepted for the new boat ramp. So we would make that across and make that into a wash down area and add more car parking where our current wash down area is.
Okay, thank you.
And so seawall project for 200,000, again, it's just to replace your seawall out at the marina.
Yes, that's to replace, it's 360 feet of seawall in total. That runs from the fuel dock and goes all the way around to the existing boat ramp right now.
But that's for FY 27 though, right? If you're going across the line item from what I'm seeing. No?
No, it's 200,000 for next year.
Oh, got it. All
Yeah,
right.
start with the old boat ramp, then the digital information sign and seawall projects, the 200,000.
Okay.
And then the resurfacing the marine parking areas for 27, the 400,000.
Yeah, we're looking at that way in the future to when, and if we have a public works building, everything, we'll have all that construction done before we go and just redo the entire lot. So that way we're not running heavy equipment over newly paved surfaces.
Andrew, I guess you print these out. Is there any way to have like a line above each of these subtotals? So that's, it's a little hard to figure out which each line item is, but it, you know, you go down to that bottom one, it actually looks like a line item and not a subtotal.
Got it. Sure.
Appreciate it.
For
Yeah, like the
tonight,
total, so the
just use a
total,
Piece of paper.
the total for,
We're all over here trying to
sorry.
make straight lines or figure out what's what.
Yeah, like the total for Johns Pass Village for the current year is 1,080,000. But again, as was stated, we move in the 1 million to fiscal 25. And then the total for the marina for fiscal 24, adding the transient docks brings the total to 460,000. And the transient docks, again, Krabby, are out here.
Okay, the transient docks would be, there's an old set of plans from 2015 to have docks put in, starting right here at City Hall and run to the corner of the rec center over here. The plans that I've seen that are in the W drive was for 56 slips, boats ranging from 30 foot up to 45, 50 foot. Now there's other options we can go about. We'd have to discuss what we really want to do. Whether we wanted to put just floating transient docks in, if we needed to add power, slips for the day. There is a lot of grant opportunities for these things with the boating improvement grants. But they would have, you know, there's points that you get for these things. Like you'd have to have power, you'd have to have upland facilities, things like that, that give you points to get these grants. So it's really a lot to just discuss over this year and, you know, get with staff and everything with the rec center, City Hall, Marina, and just figure out how we want to go about it. But there is a definite need for boat slips in the area, and it would, you know, clean up everything, and we'd have it, you know, they'd be real nice.
So the 200,000 for 2024 is really just is that just a placeholder for exploratory work? And then the million is for the next year?
That's correct.
I think we need more boat docks.
No, definitely been discussed for some years, and we can move forward. So again, the marina total for fiscal 24 at 460 and fiscal 25 1,050,000. For parking only for fiscal 24 is just a new vehicle So it's a new vehicle, not a replacement for enforcement. Right now, they're sharing a vehicle as well as when it's functioning properly, the small Gator Polaris that they use as well. And we're looking for sort of a parking specific vehicle. So something that there's different types out there, from kind of anything from a three-wheeled vehicle to just something very specific to parking. I know Jamal's been looking at different options, alternatives, and what, you know, electric would be preferred, but still looking, but we're estimating that cost for next year if we're able to get a vehicle. For some reason, they're taking a very long time. And then the Park Smart, the last line item right above the total that shows 50,000 for fiscal 25 and fiscal 26 is really is whether we will bring back much more data as to whether we add certain technology such as sensors in spaces, and we would likely begin that at either Archibald or the Village, as well as the the Johns Pass parking lot on the west side of the bridge. So sensors would be able to tell, people could look on an app, or as you're approaching the Village, we could put some sort of digital sign that would say how many spaces are still available, and it would be real time based on the sensors. So that's what we're looking to potentially add over the next couple of years. St. Pete Beach is currently doing that. They started about a year ago, and it seems to be working quite well. It's all the way down at Pass-a-Grille Beach. You can pull up an app. I don't think they have any physical, as you're driving into Pass-a-Grille, it's not listed up like when you go to the Tampa airport, it'll tell you how many spaces are available per floor. That's kind of, that would, you know, hopefully alleviate people from just constantly driving around the Village in March, April, and May. But
yeah, if you utilize the app, it's really well informed. So the app that they provide that connects to the sensors.
so that's what that item is going forward. Public Works, where we spend the majority of our capital dollars. And again, just to replace, excuse me, Megan, one of your trucks, number 19.
Yes, that is correct. That is a 2009 F-550 that houses our bucket that we use for many different departments.
And if we begin a public works building, the construction would begin sometime in fiscal 24. And we are looking at potential, well, the only site that we really have would be at the marina where they are currently located, where there's a little shed that they use. I don't even know if we would call that a shed, but
It's a shed.
it's a shed.
It has.
And then out in front of it where the equipment sits is where the Public Works building that would incorporate sort of a day room for the fire to utilize as well. And then if we begin with the parking garage, we will be discussing, I think, having a one-on-one discussions as to how you would like to proceed. As I continue to receive interest from the property owners in the Village, in the actual area that I think I've discussed with each of you as well. So we need to make that determination probably by this summer as to where exactly. The city's preferred location had been, or I shouldn't say preferred, but the location since I arrived was at the 130th Avenue lot on the west side of Gulf Boulevard. And there's significant, it's significant interest not to go there, but to go in an area in the Village in a public-private partnership with the property owners in that area next to our surface parking lot. And so we'll bring that back to you to determine how to proceed. The good news, I mean, we already, by the end of this fiscal year, we will be probably close to 800,000 funding allocated specifically for a parking garage out of the additional 50 cents. So that will just continue, and we likely will bring for fiscal year 25, likely the possibility of additional parking increases. I can tell you that our neighbors it's been communicated that they will be looking at increases as well for their parking. So. And continuing for Public Works, Megan, anything? I think that was it for Public Works. Thanks. Recreation. And there's multiple, just to redo this sidewalk around, I know it lists city center complex sidewalk, but pretty much around the park, Jay.
Is this on? Oh, there's a stretch of sidewalk down Rex Place that wasn't redone when the road was redone. So it's got some uneven edges and some areas that we need to improve on.
And then the brick pavers under the shade awnings
Yeah, there's a couple shade awnings out there.
out here at the park.
Yeah, just shell underneath them currently.
And concrete around field 2.
Yep, yeah, so the area, the centrally located field there has it has concrete next to it, but there's a section basically on both sides of the field that is just shell. And from a maintenance standpoint, the shell ends up everywhere. If you go out there right now, there's probably shell somewhere it shouldn't be. So the intent of that would be to put concrete down there, and it allows us for potential of more temporary seating if it's needed, or tents when families come and visit and all that stuff. Because we get a lot of visitors during the tournaments that look for somewhere to put chairs in the shell area. It's just a mess. So
I can tell you from experience, it's definitely much easier to put one on concrete than on the dirt and grass, especially if it's going to rain. Or if it rained the night before. It's the engine, then as we've discussed, also engineering for concession basketball court facilities. So we are, and it's related with items, a couple of line items, a little bit below the concession stand and basketball court enclosure in fiscal 25. But the engine, we can begin the more discussions and come up with actual designs and site plans for what that might look like to redo the concession stand and to better utilize the basketball court. We currently have indoor basketball leagues and programs at the Madera Beach Fundamental. We expect that we will not always be allowed to use their facility. So we're looking to, in essence, create our own that could be a multi-use inside, as well as something that could be used in tandem with softball field too. And then kind of redo that whole area. So that's what the engineering is for. And then in fiscal 25, the concession stand basketball court. And then also whether we go into redoing field 2, we will bring that back as well. And then some larger looking to place solar panels at the rec center. And I don't know whether those go above the stage or on top of the building, one or the other or both.
So yeah, a little background on that. That was actually I don't know if this past year or the previous year, but that was the board looked at the rec center, city hall, and the fire station as options, and the rec center was considered the pilot program on that. So we're actually expecting drawings. I was told last week that we would have in the next few weeks for solar panels that would go on top of the existing stage in the roof at the rec center. Once we have that, then we'll know from an RFP perspective what that cost would be.
Bus replacement, currently we utilize, the year of the bus that we use. I think
It's a 20, I want to say it's a 2016. It's that short white bus that we have out there that we utilize for the we do use it for after school care and summer camp, but mostly it's utilized for the social club. That's a 2017. That's a bus that, the social club, it has about 150 members in it now. And that's some of the, the aging well community in Madera Beach and the surrounding area. One of our biggest needs with that program is a handicap lift. and a larger bus because our trips are beginning to fill up more and more. He's actually on one right now at Slice. So, but the biggest issue is we've had a lot more, folks that need accessibility. We need to meet those concerns so they can participate. And that would be included in this.
Yeah, the social club is definitely, I think, grown in numbers, popularity, and very good activities for the participants, and they all very much enjoy it and appreciate the camaraderie and just the activities and interacting with other kind of like-minded folks and or again, aging well population. As I stated, the shade awnings and the dugout replacement kind of tied together with the other items. And the last item, the dog park, that'll be an item at tonight's, after this meeting at the workshop that we've discussed. And we're just simply putting the kind of the majority of the expense to that for next year, but we likely there'll be a split depending on the construction time. Well, depending on the bids that we receive back and then the actual construction time, we're estimating it to be completed by hopefully by the fall, start of the winter, or end of the fall, start of the winter. So it'll be kind of likely into the early part of fiscal 24.
Question. The initial numbers were 200K.
We budgeted 300,000 for the current year for a dog park.
Okay, but now
And-
we're
well,
almost
we-
$750,000.
700,000. And due to that estimate for the current year was without the fixtures that really came about at the public meetings that have been held to include whether we keep it as grass or convert it into synthetic turf, as well as add shade or the actual awnings or shade covers, as well as expand the actual footprint of the dog park. So that's the additional funding for the dog park. But again, that'll be discussed later tonight in much more detail. Sanitation, just replace one of the actual sanitation trucks, number 33 at 325,000, and a cleaner that would help to clean both our 96-gallon containers and, well, I think even the 64-gallon ones.
It would clean all the
All.
containers, plus it also would have the ability to do the dumpsters
And all of our dumpsters.
for an additional cost for the commercial businesses.
And the garbage truck, which you can see in future years, that's what those numbers are for, including the Broy Hill. We do have a cycle of replacing our sanitation.
Because they're custom, right? The sanitation trucks?
They're not necessarily custom. Last year I ordered a truck. It took me over a year to get it.
That's what I thought.
We're looking at a different program. We're just waiting for the paperwork. So in the event we do move forward with that program, they do have trucks that we could probably get within the next few months.
Oh, nice.
Okay, for storm, if there are any questions for sanitation. Stormwater, which again is where we budget our street road projects, hence why such large numbers. But we are required under our NFPES, National
NPDES.
NPDES, National Pollution
Discharge
Discharge
Elimination System.
Elimination System permit to have a watershed management plan created. The frequency,
We haven't done that since 2013, so we were in need.
and that's what the 50,000 is for fiscal 24. And so that pretty much tells,
That'll tell us our worst flood areas, our next street projects, what we need to increase, what we should have our stormwater utility fee at. So it's going to give us basically a CIP moving forward for the stormwater side of the projects.
See replacing those two 2016 Chevy Silverados. And then again, Megan, the generator is something that we have.
We are currently working on that, but unfortunately the lead time I think is going to push us into 24. So it's actually budgeted for this year and has been ordered, but we're just waiting for it. But Karen Paulson in finance has actually applied for a grant and it's looking like we're going to receive that.
I just have a quick question regarding replacing the 2016 Chevy Silverado, both of those. How do we go about shopping for those? Does someone go out and bid on those? Who's in charge of buying those trucks?
So there's a bid through the Florida Sheriff's Association that we go off of. So the Florida Sheriff's Association does the annual bid and we purchase off of that bid. Now, just because these are budgeted, there's a possibility I may not replace them. I may push them forward. It just depends on the availability. Those trucks are still in pretty decent shape. One of them starting to have a transmission problem. So it's more or less, it's within our 7 to 8 year timeline of when we replace vehicles for public works.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you know how much the grant for the generator is?
I do not. I know that she applied, I think, for $100,000 or $125,000, and I want to say it's at least 50% match.
And we also allocate each year in our capital 200,000 for any emergency stormwater repairs that we may have to the system, whether just replacing the pipes, valves, any having to redo anything in an emergency, any curbing, gutter, et cetera, just as a recurring expense that we have available. And then the last three on the page 54, 56, those three areas. Again, those are the three street projects. Again, we just budget in the stormwater fund. At least one of these has the $1 million state allocation.
Yes, area 6.
But again, we show the total budget up here and then any offset, obviously, we then, as we did for the Crystal Drive project, and we show that in the accounting of the projects, but these are the estimated budgets going in fiscal 24 and 25.
The other areas don't qualify for grants?
The other areas are far out. So we have area 5, we have 549,400 from the state. That is currently going towards that project, which is actually in with FDOT for comments right now. Area 3, we applied for a grant from the DEO, but never received any comments back. And allegedly it's still on the desk of the governor, from what I've been told. Moving forward with future projects, we do apply for the state appropriations and we do look for grant funding.
And then the last page showing areas 9 and 4. Again, area 9 in fiscal 24 is just the engineering, the design with construction expected in fiscal 25. And then the same for area 4 in fiscal years 26 and 27. So that's any questions?
Looks like 2024 is pretty aggressive there at 23,652,000. That being said, we're looking at a 5-year span here. And at some point, we need to look at undergrounding utilities in the residential areas, and it's whether it's pushed down the road or not, we need to put together a plan for that.
And so that's where there's state and federal funding, and between our utility consultants and then also the consultant that St. Pete Beach is the ones that you provided that other cities are using. That's what we're starting that plan to look for the state and the federal funding
Great.
as well as
I'm just looking forward to actually seeing it
in the.
in the plan sometime. That's all.
That's included in on the areas. So when I have these areas planned, I've already started talking to Pinellas County, to Duke Energy, especially with those areas that are coming up soon to start the planning project. Area 6 is already in with Duke Energy. I'm waiting for their costs for them to give me their fee for starting the binding cost estimate. So we have started that. It's just not specifically listed out, but it is included in on those areas.
You are awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
And also keep in mind, Mayor and Commission, this is, I mean, a plan, what we're looking to do. If it's not, it typically gets carried over to the following year based on funding availability. But it is a plan, so it's dynamic, it moves. It can begin, it can stop, it can be delayed, a variety of different things. It's a plan. And one other important thing is we will begin the process of our city strategic plan, our vision, our mission that will likely influence this and impact this plan possibly as early as fiscal 24, but likely beginning 25, 26, 27 and going into the future. What we're going to look like is what the plan, and certainly everybody that is interested in it can participate. There will be multiple public meetings to not just workshops up here, but we will go out and have meetings at different parts of the city to discuss our strategy and what the city will look like 5 years, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. So essentially redoing the master plan, which I'm kind of calling the overall strategy of the city. So that definitely impacts your capital. And I mean, you're operating as well, but definitely your capital once you are approaching sort of the end or what you think that strategic or master plan is going to look like, then it will, what's our infrastructure going to look like? What do we need to enhance or change or alter for public safety? What do we need for quality of life and leisure activities? Are we looking to keep growing the beach groins, working and refurbishing them 15 years or 20 years down the road? That type of, do we add or, completely renovate our fields? Those are the things that strategic plan, and that will influence, obviously, this capital plan every year thereafter. So just something to kind of think about, keep in the back of our minds. And so, yes, as Vice Mayor stated, pretty, substantial in fiscal 24, nearly 23.6 million and 17 million the following year. Again, the lion's share of that being these larger projects from the groins to the 3 areas, to the recreation improvements that are over $1 million. So it's 9.6 million alone is in the stormwater fund for our road, streets, and stormwater maintenance program. So it's a lot of projects, a lot of activity. But I can tell you that, we're very excited about obviously continuing with this plan and getting these projects completed.
As we look out the window, I can see that we're getting that 60% chance of rain right now. My question is, the stormwater repair, the emergency stormwater repair. I remember just a couple of weeks ago when we had a storm, 145 was underwater. 144 was not. My question is, how do we pick the areas or zones that will be worked on first and last?
So that stormwater master, the watershed management plan that we're going to have is going to have the stormwater master plan also included in on that, which helps us to pick the next area that we will do the stormwater work with, but the emergency that you see is in the event that there's a collapsed storm drain or there's an inlet that collapsed, something that's unexpected and unplanned. We've had that in the past and didn't have the funding for it, and that can be very costly. So we just keep it in there as an ongoing emergency, just in case.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other, so that's again, what we're looking for the next, it's a 5-year capital improvement plan, but most importantly, what we will bring back to you as part of the fiscal 24 budget. But certainly if any questions or anything that, any additions or subtractions that you would like from this, you can certainly comment on them now, or, I mean, we will have another workshop a month from now, or anything that you feel needs to be added or not. This is the time, or again, until we finalize our budget, which we will be looking to finalize by July, well, by the end of July, we have to have a public hearing and 2 public hearings in September. By, what's the date for our millage adoption?
To adopt it, that's
Adopt them.
by our October 1st. So, but by that second public hearing. is when
Right,
it's
but I mean,
officially
don't we have
adopted.
to, I mean, whether, I'm sorry, where we have to, that we're not gonna go above the existing millage rate.
So I think it's by
June.
35 days, like by August 4th is when we submit our proposed millage to trim. And then there's limit, then we can't increase that millage after we set that proposed millage without some ramifications. But that's the date of the proposed millage that we send to trim. And then we finalize that millage through the 2 public hearings in September.
Assuming we're gonna bring these all back per line item as we move forward and get approvals or not. Have the calculations been done? Assuming we receive the grants? How are we gonna pay for all this? Are we gonna have to incur debt? And if so, what's the plan to do that? I mean, have we gotten? Do you take those steps now or do you take those steps later? I mean, we need to understand how this is $23 million. It's a lot of money.
Well, we fund it for the year that we're looking to spend it. So it'll be from incoming revenues, as well as some of these have been deferred from the current year.
Right.
So it's all, the majority of it is funded. But once we compile the budget, that's what we will show you. But pretty much all of these the majority of them are funded. We have from ARPA funds to the grants that we've received, or the grants plus state appropriations. So that comprises several million of this. And so that's.
Yeah, I know
what
it's not a true 23 million. I
Right.
understand that,
Yeah,
but I'm just wanted to get a feel where we were. Can we afford to do all this in 2024?
so to reiterate Robin's point, we've got a variety of funding sources from grant revenue that specifically funds it. Parking garage, we've got dedicated parking revenue for the stormwater. We do have unspent debt proceeds from that 2019 issuance that we still haven't spent down. And then we've got an accumulation of fund balance over the years, because quite frankly, our CapEx, our capital expenditures have not been very high over the last few years. So page 4 of 56 is actually quite telling. That shows what our fund balance is at September 30, 2022, just in the general fund for the city of Madeira Beach. And we did some comparative analysis of other cities. So if you just look at our fund balance is healthy. We are 218% of fund balance compared to total personnel and operating. So I'm certainly not advocating that we're going to whittle that fund balance all the way down. And a lot of these projects don't even relate to the general fund, like stormwater's in the stormwater fund. We've got accumulation of those unspent debt proceeds to pay that down. $3 million parking garage, we've got generated parking revenue and accumulation of that to fund that. So that's just kind of what we're throwing all at you, the kitchen sink, that's the total project needs. It's likely that a good portion of that's going to be deferred and we're not going to be spending 23 million, but that's just the initial need that we're proposing to you all.
But this is just the capital improvement plan. This doesn't include the personnel services, the FRS.
Correct.
That's got to be added in over and above that. So we don't know what those final numbers are as of yet.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
And then just keep in mind that I still want the numbers run. We got 23 million, just a hypothetical number, 23 million in the bank. And if we keep the millage rate this is what we got to cut it to get that. And then to bring it down from 2.75 to 2.50 to put 2.25 and to 2.0 is where I would like the numbers run to see if any of that is doable, because I believe the citizens deserve a tax decrease, and we have to watch that we don't have the perception to the residents that we're out there spending frivolously. Not saying that we are, but we also can't have that perception either.
So I think the whole idea of a budget is that when you present the budget to the board, it will be a balanced budget.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
So I know we've talked about the millage before, and I think that considering reducing the millage, giving the state of our country and economy is, we can look at it, but I think that making any financial changes, given the fact that we owe debt that we took out to pay for infrastructure work that needed to be completed, and we didn't have the money, would be a poor decision on the board's part to vote, or on the commission's part to vote to reduce our income when we have outstanding debt and we can see the years coming, all of the money that we're going to need to continue the work. And that doesn't even take into account an emergency or something along those lines that could change, understanding that the expenditures could push out to next year, but they're still going to happen. And if they push out to next year, they're likely going to increase in cost just because of the nature of the world in general. I think that as we have these meetings and we get walked through, like this particular meeting tonight, we're going through the capital expenditures over the next several months or couple of months. We're going to get presentations that are going to show us, like tonight, we're going to get the dog park. I'm super excited. I've had a lot of feedback from citizens on that. So I'm very excited to see and have that discussion. I think once we get to the point that we're voting, it'll all come together as it has in years past.
That is all that we had for presentation.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, you have anything else? Vice Mayor?
I do. It's more just for presentation. Andrew, on page 6 of 56, summary of funds, revenue and expenses. First, I want to thank you for doing the year-to-date. I get so much out of that.
That was for you, Commissioner Kirk.
Okay. I'm going to ask for one more, though.
Okay.
On many of these, there are extreme differences in the numbers from one to the other. And I know that typically it has to do with a capital improvement or something that
Timing, yep.
is not apparent. I've been up here for over a year, and I'm still asking the same questions because I can't keep it all in my mind because we talk about this so infrequently. It sure would be great to have footnotes on this page of any extreme items that would impact any of these things. If you need any examples, I can bring some up, but I think you kind of get where I'm going on that. If you look at just the fiscal year 2022 budget versus the fiscal year 2023 budget, Archibald Park Fund expenses go from 1 million to 5 million. All right, that justifies some sort of a footnote or something. Why is that? And I'm sure you have the answer, but I'm not asking for an answer right now. I'm just asking that on a summary report such as this, it would just be justified. That's all. It'd keep the questions to a minimum.
Sure, we can do that.
Thank you.
Commissioners, anything else? City manager, city attorney, finance director? Anything else for us?
Thank you.
All right. It is 5:26 then, and we will adjourn this budget meeting.